Welcome to this special discussion presented by Truth Be Told. I'm your host, Dave Thompson, and today I'm joined by Chad McManus. Chad, an industry staple in the loss prevention asset protection field, is also the chair of the Organized Retail Crime Alliance in Georgia. Chad, chair of GROC, which is an association that is supported by Georgia retailers, is going to talk to us today about the importance of collaborative efforts between law enforcement, retailers, prosecutors, and legislature in the battle against organized retail crime. In this discussion, we're going to talk about the importance of monthly intelligence meetings, information sharing, and we're going to highlight some of the speakers and really neat networking opportunities that are going to be at the GROC annual conference this August. Truth Be Told is proud to partner with GROC, and on behalf of Wicklander Zalowski and the International Association of Interviewers, we can't wait to see some of these speakers, including certified forensic interviewers, take the stage at GROC this year. Chad, thanks for joining me, and I look forward to our discussion.
I appreciate it, Dave. It's awesome to be on this Truth Be Told podcast. It's such a cool platform, and enjoy it, and glad to be here.
Well, I know you've done a lot of work, not only in the field from a loss prevention and asset protection standpoint, especially around interviewing, which of course is a passion of mine. But I know you spend a large percentage of your time working with retailers and law enforcement and prosecutors across the country, but really specifically across Georgia with the Organized Crime Alliance. So can you maybe explain a little bit about what GROC is and what the mission is?
Yeah, so Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance is a alliance of both law enforcement and retail investigators. We also have some state level investigators on there. We have some fraud investigators, security officers from major mall locations in the state of Georgia. But the alliance has been around since 2012, and so our mission really started off as bridging the gap between retail and law enforcement. We saw a lot of law enforcement was doing their thing, retail investigators are doing their thing, and we really weren't talking a lot and sharing that information. And we found out that, hey, we're working the same cases, and retailers typically have more resources sometimes when it comes to working with the law enforcement agencies and some of the challenges that they're dealing with today. So that was the original goal, and it's just kind of blossomed into an alliance 14 years later that we share intel. We have annual conferences, which we'll talk about. We host special meetings here in the state of Georgia in partnership with agencies, with the Attorney General's office. So really just the bottom line is we're bringing together law enforcement and retail investigators to talk about retail crime and really try to get bad guys off the street here in Georgia.
Yeah, and I know really every time I kind of hear you speak, or I've had the opportunity to attend GROC several times, but it seems like one of the core missions or the spirit is collaboration, and it's getting retailers, law enforcement, and other partners, right, solution providers, all kind of connected and talking the same thing. So how does GROC, I guess, help facilitate those conversations and sharing communication back and forth?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, and there's a couple ways that we do that. So we do have an intel sharing platform. We're currently using the Aura platform, which many other organized crime alliances in the U.S. are using that platform. But that allows us to share intel, post bolos about cases that we're working from both retail and from a law enforcement perspective as well. So if you're a member of the alliance, you can go onto this secure platform and just look and see what kind of cases and identify folks that you may be looking at too as well. We also know that there's value, like you said, in that partnership and communication. So we come together on a monthly basis, sometimes in person, sometimes virtually, where we just do like an intel sharing meeting where we allow agencies to join or retailers just to talk real time about cases that they're dealing with. And we've done over probably 150 intel sharing meetings in our 14 years that we've been around, and I can't think of, I'm sure there was a few where there wasn't good collaboration, but almost every time we get on those calls, you have an investigator, like perfect example, just the one we just had here in July. We had an investigator post an image of a guy that hit his business for over $5,000. He's trying to identify this guy and trying to put a case on him to get him picked up. One of the agencies on the line said, hey, I recognize the guy. I've also got a case on him as well, and I've got some more information. So they were able to collaborate, share that information, and then go after this guy that was causing some severe damage in the retail environment.
Yeah, well, and I know, especially legislatively, state by state, we got different felony thresholds, and some states more difficult than others to try to prosecute some of these organized crime cases. But I would imagine building a case, separating from what is just traditional shoplifting versus organized crime, when
Yeah.
you can build a case using that information sharing technology, that you can help prosecutors and law enforcement take a case that may just be dismissed or not even charged,
Yeah.
and build it into more organized charges.
Oh yeah, definitely. We've seen a lot of success with our prosecutors and district attorneys here in Georgia around RICO. You've been to those conferences where we've had some of the experts in the state of Georgia come and talk about using RICO to prosecute organized retail crime. Just yesterday, I had the opportunity to be at the Prosecuting Attorneys Council conference in Jekyll Island, and one of the agencies down there actually did a presentation about retail crime, talked about using RICO, talked about building those partnerships, allowed me to speak a little bit on behalf of GROC and share a lot of the stuff that we're doing. But yeah, perfect example was it just allowed multiple agencies, multiple jurisdictions, multiple retailers to kind of come together and build those cases to make them more solid.
Yeah, so when you talked about some of the monthly intel meetings, and I know we'll get into your annual conference here coming up, but what are some ways that people are listening and they've got, whether it's law enforcement that's representative in Georgia, or retailers or banks that have locations in Georgia, what's the best way to kind of connect with GROC and sign up, be a part of these meetings?
Yeah, so we have a web platform that we post a lot of information on. We have links to all of the stuff that we're doing. So it's georgiaroc.org. And so you can just go on there and you'll see a bunch of different links. Sign up for the conference. You can connect to get on the Intel platform. You'll get on our list. So when we blast out communications about meetings and upcoming events, you'll get information on that. And I should say that we vet everybody that gets on there to make sure that you're either with a retailer as an asset protection or loss prevention investigator, or with a law enforcement agency. So please don't sign up with gmail.com because we're going to kick you back out. But we'll vet everybody on there. Right now, we're over 650 members in the network and the alliance. So, like you said, anybody that has interests in Georgia, you don't have to live here, but if you support Georgia and have cases or things or partners that you need to get with us here in Georgia, the perfect way to do that is through the alliance and the website.
Yeah, one thing about organized retail crime, I think there's a lot of confusion out there in the field about what separating from traditional shoplifting or even like a smash and grab to what organized crime is. And I know one of the things, one of the most important missions I feel like that law enforcement have and retail, especially loss prevention or asset protection, have is protecting the community and protecting customers and employees and creating safe environment for people to shop.
Yeah.
How do you feel like the alliance and these conferences and meetings help protect people, protect the consumer and people in the community?
Yeah. Well, I think the fact of bottom line is collaborating to get individuals that are coming into our jurisdictions, into our stores and being violent, which we've seen an uptick, getting them off the street is a big part of it. So, that's kind of what we see as the end game is to, catch these guys, catch these organized groups that are coming in the store and get them in jail so they can't move forward and potentially be involved in some sort of violent act. But I also think it's just raising awareness to the issue. You and I have both been in the industry for quite a while, and I just had this conversation the other day that back in my first job at Sears, I mean, it wasn't violent, and there's hardly any violence around it. There's just catch a shoplifter here and there, and life goes on, and it's slowly evolved where ORC is now involving terrorist organization, street gangs, violent criminals are seeing this as an opportunity to fund other things that they're doing. So I think a big part of it is just raising the awareness about it. One of the topics and a statistic that kind of surprised me yesterday, that they presented at this meeting, that just I think it was in 2022. I may be off on the year. It was 22 or 23, but the number they shared was there were 82 retail employees that's lives were impacted by organized retail crime. And I was just like, when you think about that, that could be anybody. That could be an employee. It could be one of our family members that's working in a retail environment. It could just be a customer that just happens to be wrong place, wrong time when these things happen. And so I think a big part of what we do is raise the awareness, get the bad guys off the street, and just make sure that we promote that, hey, number one priority is safety for everybody.
Yeah, one of the sessions, speaking of the annual conference, and I've had the privilege of attending and speaking at a few of these with Wicklander Zalowski, but I think it was last year's event. You had a session on technology and how technology is helping investigations, but I'm wondering how much you've seen in some of the solution providers you have at the event where technology is helping keep people safe, because maybe there's less confrontation at the store and you can build a case and have after the fact arrest or apprehensions. Is that something you feel like is trending in the field?
Yeah, I would say to some extent. I mean, obviously technology is out there. Each retailer and each organization is going to have their own specifics that they use. But I mean, just in some of the more recent events I've been to, starting to see, and even news articles, starting to see, body cams to be worn by retail, retail employees in the store.
Yeah. Well, I know, and I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I know GROC is supported by Georgia retailers, and you've got a great guy, Ben Cowart, who's the vice president of government affairs and works with Georgia retailers and works with retailers across the state to help represent some of these issues that they're dealing with legislatively. And on your side, from kind of representing the loss prevention teams and the asset protection folks, what kind of opportunities have you had to work with Georgia retailers and on the legislative side of things?
Yeah, so Ben's a great partner, and so obviously in our name, Georgia Retailers Organized Crime Alliance, we're married to them a little bit in regards to our partnership and support. So they do a lot of behind the scenes stuff for us, but from a legislative perspective, Ben is really tied into the Georgia State Senate and folks down there from the AG's office to solicitors and prosecutors. So he's constantly down at the Capitol. Talking about retail crime, talking about things that impact retailers here in the state of Georgia. He's had us come down in GROC. Matter of fact, he actually got me to put on a suit and tie, which I never thought, is something. If you know me, I'm not a suit and tie guy. So I actually put on a suit and tie and went down with him and another GROC member and spoke in front of a subcommittee about organized retail crime. He's also, set up things like what they call retail days, where retailers and GROC came in and set up a booth in the rotunda down at the state capitol, and were able to talk to different folks down there and share with them some of the opportunities and the challenges that we have. So it's a great partnership because we originally started off with the smashing. So way back in like 2010. There was a lot of smash and grabs going on in Atlanta, and so kind of our whole alliance and everything that we're doing now kind of came out of that, where just retailers and law enforcement and legislators got together and passed some laws around smash and grabs here in the state of Georgia, and it's really just evolved from there.
That's neat. Yeah, I know. And what's important, I think, for people who are listening, especially retailers, to see that when you have this kind of coalition and a collaborative voice, it makes it much more impactful when you're advocating for legislation or you're trying to go to a prosecutor and you've got, a dozen retailers all saying the same thing versus somebody calling from one store. And I know in Georgia specifically, there's been some really progressive legislative movement to try to combat organized retail crime. I know there was some funding secured with the AG's office to establish the organized retail crime. I don't want to get it wrong. The organized retail crime and cyber prosecution unit, which is really, really neat to provide some support for retailers. And the other initiative, I think it was Senate Bill 472, make sure I don't get that wrong, combating the Organized Retail Crime Act, which I believe helped clean up some of the language from the Inform Act, which, for those of you that aren't familiar with legislation, all of these are just providing better tools for retailers to work with law enforcement and prosecutors so that these people aren't just hitting the same stores every single day, and we can actually fix the root cause of the problem.
Yeah, so that's huge. The AG's office is, they're obviously looking at everything statewide and partnering across the board. But they've worked with us and partnered with us, and we've been invited to attend those meetings as they were kind of developing this process. Matter of fact, a lot of those investigators that are going to be on this, prosecuting unit are already part of our organization. So it's a win-win for the state. Ben Cowart is a legislative genius. If somebody asks me a legislative question, I'm like, hold on, let me call Ben, because he knows everything in and out. He could probably recite, all the bills that are out there. So, but his ability to get in there and talk about this stuff has really allowed us to be a part of what the AG's office is doing, and it's making a big difference here in Georgia.
Well, and so what you just said about Ben, I think brings me to the impact of this conference. GROC is in August 7th
Yep.
this year. And I think one of the, I guess, might be intangible benefits are these relationships that you can build at these events. And you meet people like Ben and law enforcement and prosecutors and retailers. Those relationships, when it's face to face, just seem to have a lasting impact. So we'll talk a little bit about the conference, but I think maybe if you could just touch on how impactful the networking is in itself at that event.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that come out of it is just people meeting, and a lot of times, even over the last few years, a lot of the interaction's been virtual, just because of things that have been going on. But bringing in and letting the T-Mobile team meet investigators from Henry County, or vice versa, just so it raises that level of connection. It gives them somebody they can call. One of the biggest things that when I talk about our alliance in the conference is that networking piece. And my example is, hey, if you're an investigator, if you're a detective and you're working a case and you need information from, fill in the blank of the retailer name, it's sometimes difficult to call directly and get a hold of somebody. Not at any fault necessarily of either side, but the person you're reaching out to may not know or may not have the authorization to talk about whatever. So by meeting people at our conference, meeting people through our alliance, you can actually pick up the phone, call somebody directly that's investigating those type cases and have the interaction on there. So this is our 14th year of doing this conference. Every year we bring in kind of a new group of investigators and loss prevention folks that are coming into the industry and really talk about that. Hopefully, walk away from this with some contacts, meet some people from some retailers and some agencies that you didn't know before you walked in. So not only is it training, is it awareness, but it's a big part of it is the networking piece.
Yeah, I always enjoy the event, enjoy seeing some familiar faces and meeting new contacts every time. And I know we'll be there. Truth be told, is going to be at the conference, and we'll be doing some interviews with speakers and getting a chance to talk to some attendees. But most importantly, the content you have. I've got the agenda pulled up. You got always really some diverse content that applies to everybody in the room. But we can call it a couple of these specifically. I know I have to mention first a good friend of mine, Mike Reddington, is looks like closing out the day on disciplined listening. And what do you expect attendees to get from Mike's presentation?
I've seen Mike a couple times, and a lot of the content that he talked about was new to me when I first saw him. So I was like, wow, this is big. This is something that you can close the day out and maybe take back. One of the things that we always try to do again is not only that networking piece, but give you as an attendee something to take back. I've got a person that works with me that sometimes will say, yeah, these conferences, they're boondoggles. It's just a chance to get together and whatever. And I'm like, I don't feel that way at GROC. I feel like we are legitimately, trying to give you something that you can take back to your business, whether you're in law enforcement or whether you're in retail. The cool thing about Mike, right? He's a CFI, so he's been in the industry. So what he talks about, he relates it to what we deal with. So I'm looking forward to him kind of giving us some motivation and some marching orders that we can go back to people that we work with and people that we interact with and have some good tools from the toolbox that he's going to share with us.
Yeah, other than being a Patriots fan, Mike is a pretty good guy.
I didn't know that. I'll have to cancel him then.
Yeah, but yeah, I would say some really really good takeaways there, and handling those kind of difficult conversations that apply to everything that we deal with in our day-to-day jobs and personal lives. And you mentioned CFI, so people that attend will also get qualify for continuing education credits for their CFI, which is always a bonus.
Yep.
Your opening keynote, you've got Assistant Chief Deputy Gina Hawkins from Cobb County Sheriff's Office. That's awesome.
Yeah. We have a partnership with the Georgia Association of Women in Public Safety. They're their own organization. They do a lot of good stuff here in the state. Bringing women together that are either in law enforcement, 911 operators, first responders. They have a big annual conference, and so we kind of swap back and forth and share information. We'll go to their conference, they come to ours. So they're the ones that are kind of putting on that kickoff, and she's got a pretty illustrious experience of life coming through the Carolinas down here to Atlanta, being one of the first female chief deputies in a lot of these organizations that she's been in. So we're excited to kind of have her kick us off in the morning and get us started off on the right foot.
That's great. I know Strickland Safety Solutions are sponsoring her opening session there, and I know Mike was supported by Alto, another good partner of ours we work with all the time. You've got a session by Vince Martinez and Colby Brannon titled, I like this, is on workplace culture. What is it? How do I affect it? And how does it change?
Yeah.
Culture partners. It seems fun.
Yeah. So, and I'm looking over here because I'm looking at the agenda too. And
Yeah.
see that. But I'm excited about that one. So the way that one kind of came about is, again, with some partnerships into some other events, we kind of ran into some people in that organization and heard what they talked about. And one eye-opening thing to me in a session that I was at kind of on those topics is just how you got to deal with people differently. Is it an ellipsis? What are the three dots after the end?
I think that works. Yeah. We'll call them three dots just so we're safe.
Three dots. So to me and you maybe, like, if I say something and put three dots, it's like, okay, into thought, whatever, I don't think about it. If you put that into somebody that's in their 20s or 30s, that they feel differently. They're like, wait a minute, something's going on here. There's more they're not telling me, and they look at it differently. So what they're hoping they're bringing to the conference, and what we've heard and heard them and what they talk about, is just kind of how to enhance your interaction with those different cultures, whether it's millennials, whether it's Gen X, and we got all these crazy things going on that you have to deal with, especially as people leaders, and as if you have a team that reports to you, you're going to be dealing with a lot of different stuff. So
yeah. And as interviewers, I think that's a great a great translate, because we get questions all the time about interviewing different generations.
Yeah.
And we've got some questions about when are we going to start doing interviews via text message and email. So that'll be great. I'm looking forward to that
Yeah,
session.
it'll be a good one. So we're excited about that one. And then so we got a mix of general sessions. So you mentioned technology a little bit earlier. We've actually got Cobb County has a huge real-time crime center. But if you just Google Cobb County Real-Time Crime Center, you'll see a ton of data on what they're doing. They're actually going to come in and talk about some of the technology, things that they're doing. They've closed a couple big ORC related cases in Cobb County because of that real-time crime center. So it's like you said, a very broad. When we first started the conference, we were all about, let's talk about ORC, and then we kind of said, let's bring in maybe some leadership and help develop you as a person or as a member of your organization. And so I think this year we got a good balance of stuff that talks about retail crime specifically, and then stuff that kind of can help you from a personal brand. And then Chief Manley from Austin is going to be a good one too. That's maybe learn a few things from that, but he's got a great presentation where he talks about the experience of the Austin bombing that happened back in 2018. So that'll be kind of the interesting one as well for me. Sandwiched by two really learning and helping me be a better person and a better investigator, a better interviewer. And so I think it's going to be a great day from start to finish.
Yeah, that one looks neat. A case study on the 2018 Austin bombing. I'm looking forward to that. And I just want to recognize you guys have a lot of good solution providers just supporting these sessions. So you've got off-duty management supporting his, and then the Cobb County sessions. LVT, which I'm seeing out there in parking lots all over the place, and 3SI, and I know you mentioned Aura earlier. And the last thing I wanted to talk about is, I know you guys as GROC, I know you personally too, are really passionate about giving back to the community and partnering with continued education. So you've had a long time partnership with Kennesaw State, and you guys also do some work to give out scholarships and some charitable contributions at the event. So maybe you can expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of our pillars from when we first started. Not only did we want to, impact legislative initiatives, bring people together, focus on organized retail crime, give back to the community was a pillar, and then a kind of an educational pillar. So, and we every year we are able to involve different charitable organizations in the conference. Just some past folks that we've worked with, Atlanta's Police Athletic League, Care for Cops. So there's some different agency cadets and some of the programs that agencies have for students that want to get into law enforcement. We also partner with Community Teen Coalition, which is a great organization here in Georgia that helps bring teens in and teach them business skills. So we look to partner with them and help support that a little bit. And then to your point, one of the reasons we're back at Kennesaw State this year is because of that partnership and the scholarship. So we actually have a GROC scholarship that's available for juniors and seniors who are going into an internship. So I've sent 2 kids through school, and one thing I realized that they realized is you can't wear pajamas and a hoodie to your internship. So one of the things that we do in that scholarship is just help give those students some funds, whether they need to upgrade the wardrobe a little bit to go sit at the GBI office for their internship, or maybe they're driving across town when they normally wouldn't be, and gas is expensive. So we give a $1,000 scholarship each semester at KSU to students that apply for it and are vetted through the department and through our organization. We also set that up last year. We started it up at Georgia State University as well. So it used to be Kennesaw State, and we expanded to Georgia State, but we're re-upping it this year again for another probably 5 years with Kennesaw State. So it was just made sense to be down on one of their campus locations in Marietta to have the conference, since we're going to do that partnership with them again in 2024.
Yeah, I think that's great. You're really well connected with the community in so many different ways. So if you didn't catch it earlier, if you're interested in more about what Chad and the GROC team is doing, it's georgiaroc.org. You can find information about the conference there, or anything about Georgia retailers can connect through there as well. But I know we'll be there. We look forward to being at the event this year, and continue partnership with you, Chad, and with GROC. So thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And we'll see you here in a couple of weeks. And again, thanks for all you're doing with the podcast and the content. Like I said in the beginning, is just superb. So if you're listening to this for the first time, go back and pick up on some of these sessions that Dave's been able to put down on the podcast platform. So we love it. But thank you.
I appreciate that. We even got Mike Reddington, one of your speakers, as one of our first guests, so you can get a kind of a sneak peek. But
speak at what he's going to be. Yeah, I think it's cool. So real quick, and then I know we're going to run, but I think this is the first year in 14 years that we've kind of had that, the podcast partnership. Obviously, back in 2008, 9, 10, podcast may not have been that big of a deal, but recently it's a lot going on. So we're really excited to have that, that partnership and leverage each other, and hopefully it'll kind of turn into some more stuff that we can communicate and talk about as we go through the upcoming years. Yeah,
looking forward to it, and practicing my interview skills at the conference. So if you're there, look forward to sitting at the booth with me and getting you on video. So
yeah, awesome.
Thanks, Chad. Appreciate everybody listening to this special edition of Truth Be Told, and hopefully we'll see you in a few weeks.
Yep.
Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And to keep this conversation going, follow the Truth Be Told podcast on LinkedIn and Truth Be Told CFI on Twitter. On behalf of the International Association of Interviewers, McManus and our valued sponsors, thank you for joining us on this episode of the Truth Be Told podcast.